Shalom. I mean, a lot of things have transpired over the past week or so, few days. We had a killing of a man in broad daylight, one of our people, by a cop. This has sparked a national outrage, and we seem to have riots and protests popping up all over the nation. Now, though it is one of our people, and the circumstance is very frustrating in which he lost his life, I don't believe that we're such a loved people in this country that the entire country would basically tear itself apart because of the death of one of our people. Yes, it was a disturbing video, but come on now. The most that we could really expect from it is basically what we got in, the Michael Brown case and Ferguson riots. But what's happening now, this is a bit too much. So I have to consider that this is probably part of some agenda. And I would like to bring to light, or, get people to remember some events that happened a few months ago. A few months ago, there was a lot of buzz on the internet about military equipment being moved, transported all over the nation. People all over the country were sending in videos of tanks being transported on trains and things like that all over the nation. Now, this was around the time when people were expecting martial law to be declared by Donald Trump over the pandemic. That never materialized. But one thing we have to understand about these people who are behind all this, they never truly abandon their agendas. They just readjust. That's basically all they do. So it would appear, considering the ongoing riots and the ever increasing military presence that we're seeing at the riots, because of, National Guard being deployed, one has to wonder, could this be the chosen event to declare martial law? I mean, they even have the White House on lockdown because of the protesters and riots. This could be really what they're going to choose to try to push the concept of martial law being needed in order to bring the chaos to an end. See, the thing is, with COVID, with the pandemic, there was never any chaos happening. I don't know, maybe they wanted there to be chaos happening, but it never materialized. The most you had happen with that were people going to their local state capitals and protesting. That was about as bad as it got with the pandemic. There was never any really destruction. Now with these riots and protests, they have the widespread destruction that they were looking for. Now, the thing is, it's kind of hard for one of us, for a slave descendant, black, for an Yisra'elite, to want to consider that this whole thing is a plan, a plot. This is one of those difficult situations where these planners and plotters that are behind all this, they'll use your own emotions, your own prejudices against you. We know the history that we have when it comes to dealing with police in this country. So there's no love for the police in our hearts, and rightfully so. So when we see a video that depicts one of our people being slowly strangled or prevented from breathing by a group of cops, it's hard to not detach yourself from that. It's hard to, it's hard to detach yourself from that and try to see things, the bigger picture. I'm not a fan of coincidences. And if this scenario that's transpiring right now with these protests and riots ends up being the reason for martial law, for crackdowns nationwide, I will not sit up here and continue to believe that the death of George Floyd was a random event orchestrated by just another racist cop. I won't believe that. Because we know that they want to put in place this heavy-handed martial law type situation here, so that they can have all the elements in place for when they finally get around to, and yes, it's still on the books, yes, it's still in the works, for when they finally get around to deploying the vaccine and demanding people or mandating people to take it. The pieces will already be in place. You won't have to have this big scene of the National Guard or military rolling in to try to force the vaccine on people. No, they'll already be there because they were there due to the riots. These people this is just I don't want to call it a prediction, but this is just my assessment. These troops that are in place now, that have been brought in, they will not be leaving anytime soon. They will stay around, and the excuse will be is that they're needed to maintain the order once all the rioting has come under control. The excuse will be that these military assets that we see will continue to be needed in order to keep things under control. So it represents the new normal. Something that we've constantly heard them say over and over again in regards to the pandemic, that is creating a new normal. Well, this is going to be part of it. An ongoing military presence on the streets of America is also part of that new normal. I guarantee you that these assets will not leave. They are there for the long haul. So, though it's hard to want to believe that the death of George Floyd was anything more than a random racist act by a racist cop, I do believe that's what it's shaping up to be. I mean, I do believe that it's more than that, because the way we're seeing things transpire following his death. We are not that loved in this country for the entire country to be up in flames because one of us was killed. Come on, let's be honest. What did the Most High say about his people? That pretty much all of the other nations would hate you. And we've seen the truth of that pretty much in every other situation where one of us was killed by a cop, pretty much we would only be the people out there protesting it. We'd only be the people calling foul on it, you know. But only in this situation do we see, I mean, if you watch these protests, if you watch the independent live streams of the protests, you will see quite often, majority of the time, non-black people doing most of the fighting with the cops, doing most of the looting. It really is. I mean, because of that, the demographic that you see in these streams, it's hard to remember that this is supposedly all being done because of the death of a black man. This is, you're like, no, this response is a bit too much. This is a bit more than we should be expecting from these other people. So what I do believe is happening, I do believe that there is some kind of orchestrated effort to promote these protests. There's all kind of rumors going around about cops, undercover cops, being the ones that started the violence in the first place. That, you know, maybe where there's a protest, where the protest is pretty much peaceful, the undercover cops there are the ones doing things to get, you know, to get people rowdy. Which is, you know, this is not something new. That's been done many times and it's been proven. Other rumors about there being pallets of bricks left around for the protesters to throw at the police. So there definitely is something going on with this, and it's using the death of one of our people to power it. It just seems that any kind of major change that needs to happen in this country, these globalists, these people who are behind all this stuff, they always need to have us involved. They can't seem to find the power to push the change via themselves or some other race of people. They always have to ensure that us Israelites are involved. It also makes me think back to the Grammys that took place, you know, on the day of Kobe Bryant's death. In the strange performance, I don't remember what that artist's name was. Some type of song he performed where in the background he had neighborhoods and city streets on fire and stuff like that. You know, just go back and I'm pretty sure there's YouTube videos of that on that Grammy performance, whoever it was that performed that. You know, you know, I mean, these people, it seems like they have to show you what they're going to do before they do it. And I think that Grammy performance was them showing the riots that we're experiencing now. So, and yeah, I mean, you got the military equipment that was being moved around all over the nation a few months ago. Now, that was in place so that when, you know, the call for National Guardsmen and military assets and all that stuff, because of these riots, went out, there it is. The equipment's already there. So it would seem that this is the beginning of, this is a way to roll out the military presence that everyone was expecting to be rolled out. But they were expecting it to be rolled out as a way of something to do with the pandemic. It's like, no, it's not being rolled out because of the pandemic. It's being rolled out because of rioting and looting. But it will ultimately be used. The true purpose of it all is for the pandemic, is for handling the mandatory testing and vaccination programs to come. They're using the riots to get their assets in place for their real purpose of mandatory vaccines and testing to come. And there ain't no telling how messy this whole mess is going to get. But we just have to keep prayed up, keep focusing on the Most High Yah, keep our prayers there and nowhere else. There's going to be a lot of people that's going to be trying to pull us this way or that. You know, a lot of people trying to convince us of different scenarios. They're going to try to convince us that we're all doomed to die. That's where understanding, reading scripture and understanding it, what you're reading, comes into play. You know what's coming next. And it is not the death of the people of Israel. So that's all I have to say about that. Shalom.